Assalamualaikum, good morning. Today's topic is neuroblastoma, rhabdomyosarcoma, prepubertal testicular tumors. In our learning objective, we have clinical presentation, risk group of neuroblastoma, the genetics, staging, treatment modalities, and then rhabdomyosarcoma and testicular tumors in brief. So neuroblastoma is a tumor of neural crest origin that forms the adrenal medulla and sympathetic ganglia. This tumor may occur anywhere along the sympathetic chain within the thorax, retroperitoneum, pelvis, or the adrenal gland. It arises in 75% of cases in retroperitoneum, 50% in adrenal, and 25% in paravertebral ganglia. Homovanillic acid and vinyl mandelic acid are the active metabolites in urine. Neuroblastoma is the most common extracranial solid tumor of childhood, accounting for 8 to 10% of all malignancies in children. It is the most common malignancy in infants with median age of diagnosis of 19 months. However, in familial cases, it can be as less as 9 months. More than 40% of cases present by the age of 1 year. It is the cause of 50% of cancer-related deaths, and more than half of these children are seen initially with metastatic disease. In genetics, we have certain familial cases and rest are the spontaneous cases. In familial cases, it has an autosomal dominant pattern of inheritance with genes located at short arm of chromosome 16 at location 12 and 13. Other genes involved are FOXC2B and ALK, which we see in less than 1% of cases. It involved 20% of cases have bilateral, adrenal, or multifocal primary tumors, and there is only 6% risk of development in siblings or offsprings. And then there are certain genetic or chromosomal factors by which we classify these tumors as having favorable or adverse prognosis. In favorable prognosis, we have aneuploidy of tumor DNA, abnormal copies of
What is aneuploidy? Okay, aneuploidy is a loss of chromosome. Aneuploid, the absence, loss of arm of chromosomes, loss of chromatin material, loss of chromosome.
And the second is abnormal number of copies of normal 23 chromosome, which we see in 55% of cases. In adverse prognosis, we have amplification of myosin oncogene at short arm of chromosome 2, which we see in 20 to 25% of cases, and deletion of short arm of chromosome 1, which we see in 25 to 35% of cases. Amplification of myosin oncogene is present in 40% of patients with advanced stage disease and 5 to 10% of children with low stage disease. And it is associated with rapid progression and poor outcome from treatment. Histologically, there is a schemata classification which describes these tumors at either favorable or unfavorable histology based on the stromal component as either stroma rich or stroma poor, grades of differentiation, mitosis, karyohexis index, and age.
What is karyohexis? Karyohexis, it is a part of apoptosis. Apoptosis, programmed cell death. In karyohexis, what happens that nucleus fragmented. Okay, chromatin material fragmented, and then it causes the destruction of the cell. So mitosis, karyohexis index is इट इज मतलब कि उसमें जो वो आप कंट्रोल कर रहे होते हैं कि उसमें माइटोसिस कितना हो रहा है, ट्यूमर ग्रोथ कितनी हो रही है, और अपॉप्टोसिस कितना हो रहा है, प्रोग्राम सेल डेथ जो है वो कितनी हो रही है, जो एक नॉर्मल फेनोमेना होता है ट्यूमर कंट्रोल के लिए. तो karyohexis इज द फ्रेगमेंटेशन ऑफ द न्यूक्लियस एंड डिस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ द सेल. Okay, it is a part of apoptosis. Another is karyolysis. In karyolysis, there is a release of enzyme which cause the lysis of the cell. It is also a type of apoptosis. Understand?
Common site of primary neuroblastoma is adrenal medulla in 50% of cases, paraspinal ganglia in 25% of cases, posterior mediastinum in 20%, pelvic neuroblastoma in 4%, and cervical neuroblastoma in 1% of cases. Common sites of metastatic neuroblastoma is bone marrow in 70% of cases, bone in 55%, lymph node 30%, liver 29%, intracranial or orbital involvement in 18%, adrenal 7.6%, skin in 4%, and pleura in 3.4%. Clinically, it presents as an abdominal mass which is firm, irregular, non-mobile, and may cross the midline. It causes fever, weight loss, sweating, and palpitation as a result of chemokine release. Rest of the symptoms are based on the site of origin. In thoracic origin, it may grow into the lungs, causing breathing difficulties. In neck, it presses the facial nerves and causes and later on cases Horner syndrome as a result of involvement of T1. In spine, it causes neurological symptoms like muscle, bowel, and bladder weakness. In adrenal medulla, it may present as a painful abdominal mass. It may spread to bones and causes bone pain and fracture. Most common sites of bone involvement are the long bones and the bones of the skull. And when it involves the base of the skull, it may cause orbital ecchymosis or raccoonitis. In skin, it may present as small blue subcutaneous nodules. And it also causes paroxysmal attack of sweating, flushing, pallor, headache, hypertension, and palpitation as a result of catecholamine release. It may causes VIP syndrome, which is characterized by untreatable diarrhea and hypokalemia. When the
एक मिनट नादिया VIP stands for vasoactive glutathione.
when the bone marrow is involved, it may causes fatigue, easy bruising, and frequent infection as a result of pancytopenia. It is the most common cause of opsoclonus myoclonus syndrome in children, which is an acute myoclonic encephalopathy resulting from the interaction of antibodies produced against the neuroblastoma to normal neural tissues. Opsoclonus is a rapid multidirectional eye movement, and myoclonus is uncontrolled, jerky movement of the extremity. It may also causes cerebral ataxia, dysphasia, intellectual deficit, vomiting. It is less likely to improve with tumor resection and prolonged neurological impairment, including learning disabilities and developmental delay is the rule in 70 to 80% of these patients. It may respond to steroids, intravenous immunoglobulins, chemotherapy, and immunotherapy. Neuroblastoma is diagnosed by testing for homovalenic acid and vinyl mandelic acid in urine and blood. It is used to diagnose, detect tumor relapse, and respond to therapy. In CBC, we see a picture of pancytopenia when the bone marrow is involved. Bone marrow biopsies and aspirate is used for staging. In plain X-ray, we can see calcified mass in the flank or other origins. In CT scan and MRI, we see the location, size, vascular involvement, and interspinal extension of the tumors. MIBG scan is used to determine the extent of the disease and tumor recurrence after completion of therapy. So there is a radiological feature that distinguishes the Wilms tumor from neuroblastoma on CT scan, which is presence of intratumoral calcification and vascular involvement, which we don't see in Wilms tumor. So there are two staging system of neuroblastoma. One is International Neuroblastoma Scoring System that is based on surgical resection. There are 4 stages. Stage 1 is localized tumor with complete gross excision with or without microscopic residual disease. Representative ipsilateral lymph nodes are negative for tumor microscopically, and nodes attached to and removed with the primary tumor may be positive. Stage 2 is classified into A and B. 2A is localized tumor with incomplete gross excision. Representative ipsilateral non-adherent lymph nodes are negative for tumor microscopically. 2B is localized tumor with or without complete gross excision with ipsilateral non-adherent lymph nodes positive for tumor, and enlarged contralateral lymph nodes are negative microscopically. Stage 3 is unresectable unilateral tumor infiltrating across the midline or beyond the opposite side of vertebral column with or without regional lymph node involvement, or midline tumor with bilateral extension via infiltration that can be unresectable or lymph node involvement. Stage 4 is any primary tumor with dissemination to distant lymph nodes, bone marrow, liver, skin, and other organs, except for as defined in stage 4S. Stage 4 is localized primary tumor, which can be stage A, 2A, or 2B, with dissemination that is limited only to skin, liver, bone marrow. This stage is limited to infants younger than 1 year. Bone marrow involvement should be less than 10% of total nucleated cell, and MIBG scan should be negative in the bone marrow. The second staging system is International Neuroblastoma Risk Group Staging System that is based on tumor imaging. The parameters are age, histological category, grade of differentiation, mycin, and we are not going into detail of this stage. Prognosis of neuroblastoma is dependent on age, primary site of disease, stage, and biology. Less than 1 year have better survival than older children, attributed to the presence of favorable biological parameters in tumor diagnosed at this stage. Diagnosis at age of more than 18 months is associated with higher risk of disease recurrence. Non-adrenal primary tumors have better survival. In staging, all stage 1 patient with complete resection survive. Stage 2 patient have favorable survival even with incomplete resection. Stage 3 and stage 4 require more intensive treatments. Overall survival for stage 1, 2, and 4S ranges from 75% to 90%. Stage 4 has 2-year survival rate of 90 to 30% despite intensive therapy and bone marrow transplantation. Stage 4S, which we see only in 7 to 10% of all cases, has good prognosis with overall survival ranging from 80 to 88% and many undergoing spontaneous regression. Most deaths in stage 4S are seen in infants under 2 months of age with extensive abdominal and respiratory compromise or DIC. In biology, myosin amplification is associated with rapid tumor progression and poor prognosis. It is found in 5 to 10% of patients with low stage or stage 4S and 30 to 40% in advanced stage disease. However, not all patients with advanced stage and poor outcome have myosin amplification. Hyperploidy is associated with favorable outcome, while diploidy and tetraploidy with decreased survival. Lack of expression of CD44 is associated with adverse prognostic factor. Poor outcome is in stage 4S is seen in elevated enolase level, elevated ferritin levels, elevated urinary dopamine levels, myosin amplification, and chromosome 1p depletion. Treatment is according to risk stratification. Stage 1, 2, and stage 4S comes under the heading of low risk, and surgery alone is sufficient with disease-free survival rate of more than 90%. Chemotherapy is only given in cases of recurrence, myosin amplification, or unfavorable histology. Radical resection resulting in removal of normal organ is not justified in this group. Stage 3 and stage 4 come under the heading of intermediate and high risk group and is treated by surgery, intensive chemotherapy, bone marrow transplantation, and immunotherapy. Chemotherapy is given as neoadjuvant, adjuvant, or as a part of multimodal therapy. Surgery is usually performed after 13 to 18 weeks of initiation of chemotherapy, allowing 3 to 4 courses of treatment, and relapse is a major problem in neuroblastoma. So the tumors with favorable biology, 4 cycles of chemotherapy are given. In unfavorable biology, 8 cycles are given over 168 days. Drugs used are carboplatin, etoposide, doxorubicin, and cyclophosphamide in given doses. Radiotherapy is given as a part of multimodal therapy. It is used in the treatment of METs, given in infant less than 60 days with stage 4S, and marked respiratory compromise from liver mets that has not responded to chemotherapy. It is given in relapsed patients who fail to respond to either primary or secondary chemotherapy. It is also given in symptomatic spinal cord compression that has not responded to initial chemotherapy or surgical decompression. Dose of external beam radiation has ranges between 15 to 30 gray unit depending on patient's age, location of tumor, and extent of residual disease. 2 of the most common complications that we see after neuroblastoma resection is chylothorax or chyloascites and diarrhea. Chyloascites result from the resection of involved retroperitoneal lymph nodes. It is usually self-limiting and is treated with low-fat diet and tube drainage. Operative duct ligation is used in very rare cases. Diarrhea is due to extensive resection around the tumor next to celiac axis or superior mesenteric artery, resulting in resection of autonomic nerves to gut. Other complications are hemorrhage, vascular injury, genitourinary injuries like kidney loss or bladder or uterine injury, gastrointestinal complication like enterotomies or fistulas, prolonged ICU stay, and death in less than 1% of cases. Other complications are renal artery spasm, which is treated with topical piperacillin and low-dose dopamine infusion. Vascular injury is either primarily repaired or by vein graft, and in rare cases we can do transplant or we can go for vascular health. So the second topic.
Any confusion and question about neuroblastoma? So yeah.
Rhabdomyosarcoma is the most common soft tissue sarcoma in children, which arises from undifferentiated skeletal muscle precursors. It is rare in children with incidence of 4 in 1 million, of which 15 to 25% arising within the genitourinary system. It has a bimodal age distribution of presentation, with the first peak in the early year of life and second in adolescence. Risk factor includes advanced maternal age, birth weight of more than 4 kg, severe syndromic conditions including Li-Romani syndrome, Dicer-1, Costello syndrome, neurofibromatosis, and MEN type 2A. Rhabdomyosarcoma is classified as favorable and unfavorable depending on the sites of its origin. The favorable sites are biliary tract, orbit, head and neck, paratesticular penile area, vaginal or uterine. Unfavorable origin are of bladder and prostate, urethral origin, retroperitoneal origin, extremity or parameningeal origin. Histologically, rhabdomyosarcoma is classified into two. The first one is embryonal type, which accounts for 60% of all cases of rhabdomyosarcoma in children, and 90% of them arises from the genitourinary system. It is associated with high overall survival of survival, that is 80% in after 5 years. Second is alveolar type, which is more common in older children, and it is aggressive with poor prognosis. Staging of rhabdomyosarcoma is based on site, size, nodal status, and METs. Stage 1 is favorable site with any size and nodes and METs negative. Stage 2 is unfavorable site with size less than 5 centimeter and nodes and METs negative. Unfavorable stage 3 is unfavorable sites with tumor size of less than 5 centimeter, nodes positive but METs negative. Stage 3B is unfavorable site with tumor size of less than 5 centimeter. Nodes can be negative or positive, but METs negative. Stage 4 is any site, any size, and any nodal status with METs positive. So we will be discussing only the genitourinary rhabdomyosarcoma. The first one is bladder and prostate rhabdomyosarcoma, which is diagnosed, and the diagnosis is confirmed by endoscopic biopsies, and assessment of feasibility of an organ sparing complete resection is done later on. Bladder and prostate rhabdomyosarcoma are usually not amenable to complete resection at the time of diagnosis, so chemotherapy is given initially, and the regime is vincristine, actinomycin, and cyclophosphamide. Radiation therapy is used for local disease control in cases where the primary tumor is not completely resected. And it is important to note that residual tumors seen on follow-up imaging after chemoradiation may not be malignant tissue, but may consist of cells which have differentiated into mature rhabdomyoblasts which do not require additional treatment. Second is paratesticular rhabdomyosarcomas, and unlike bladder and prostate, rhabdomyosarcoma is designated as favorable site and should therefore be initially managed by radical surgery whenever possible. Surgery include ipsilateral radical inguinal orchidectomy with high ligation at the level of the internal inguinal ring of the spermatic cord, and upon confirmation of the diagnosis, patients with paratesticular rhabdomyosarcomas are treated with combination of VAC chemotherapy. The decision to perform ipsilateral retroperitoneal lymph node dissection is based on patient's age and imaging findings. In children under 10 years of age, is limited to those with suspicious lymph nodes on staging and cross-sectional imaging. In patients aged 10 years or above, ipsilateral retroperitoneal lymph node dissection should be performed in all cases regardless of the presence or absence of lymphadenopathy because of the much higher incidence of occult lymph node involvement in this age range. Radiation therapy is reserved for the patient with locally advanced disease and those with confirmed lymph node involvement, and those whom orchidectomy has been performed by a transscrotal approach. So the last topic is prepubertal primary testicular tumors. Primary testicular tumors comprises approximately 1 to 2% of all solid tumors in prepubertal children, and up to 75% of these tumors have little or no malignant potentials. The peak age of diagnosis is around 2 to 4 years of age, with second peak in young adults. Common risk factors include previous history of undescended testes, family history of testicular cancer, coexisting DST, particularly one that involves the Y chromosome. The differential diagnosis of a newly discovered testicular mass are germ cell tumor, which involve teratoma and yolk sac, stromal tumors, which may be associated with precocious puberty, epidermoid cyst and concentric ring are found in ultrasound, metastatic lesions like lymphoma and gonioblastoma. Testicular tumors are initially evaluated by scrotal ultrasound to see if it's a paratesticular mass or a primary testicular mass, and the appearance of contralateral testes, serum tumor markers including alpha-fetoprotein, beta-HCG, and lactate dehydrogenase. Additional hormonal evaluation is indicated, including serum testosterone, estradiol, and inhibin levels if there is any suspicion that the lesion may represent a stromal type tumor. CT should be used selectively because of the relatively low incidence of metastatic disease associated with testicular tumors in children. Stage 1 of testicular tumor is limited to testis, and it is completely resected with no evidence of disease beyond testis. Serum tumor markers are normal. Stage 2 is microscopic residual disease with elevated serum tumor markers, and tumor may be ruptured or scrotal biopsy prior to orchidectomy. Stage 3 is retroperitoneal lymph node involvement, and stage 4 is distant METs. The initial treatment of testicular tumor is in children usually consists of either radical or partial orchidectomy, and inguinal incision should always be used for surgical exploration of a primary testicular tumor in a pubertal boy because of the possible need to proceed to radical orchidectomy. Preoperative chemotherapy is limited to children in whom a delay in starting chemotherapy could be life-threatening because they have a large burden of disease with pulmonary or neurological involvement. If the diagnosis is uncertain and preoperative tumor markers are normal, particularly in patients with small tumors or unifocal tumors, partial orchidectomy with intraoperative frozen section is a reasonable approach. In these cases, the use of intraoperative ultrasound can be helpful in locating the margins of the tumor prior to excision. If the frozen section raises suspicion of malignancy, the surgeon can proceed to perform a radical orchidectomy, whereas if the pathology is more consistent with the benign process, the affected testis can be spared. The possible requirement for further treatment, that is surgery, chemo, or radiation, is determined by the pathology and tumor characteristic. So in germ cell tumor, first of all, we have teratoma, which is the most common benign testicular tumor in pubertal children. It consists of a combination of the 3 germ cell layers, including the endoderm, ectoderm, and mesoderm. Teratomas are not usually accompanied by elevated serum tumor markers. The definitive treatment is orchidectomy, either radical or partial, and it is performed by an inguinal incision. Second of the germ cell tumor is York sac tumor, which is the most common malignant testicular tumors in children, and it is almost universally associated with elevated levels of alpha-fetoprotein and is characterized by histological finding of Schiller-Duval bodies on microscopy. 90% of York sac tumor present at stage 1 disease and are managed by radical orchidectomy, followed by monitoring serum AFP levels and chest and abdominal imaging at increasing intervals. Patients who present with stage 2 or 3 and 4 or stage 1 who experience a recurrence after orchidectomy are treated with bleomycin, etoposide, and cisplatin chemotherapy. Patients with retroperitoneal lymph node involvement should undergo a formal radical lymph node dissection. In stromal tumors, we have Leydig cell tumor, which is the most common stromal tumor in childhood, and it's often associated with elevation in serum testosterone level, which can lead to precocious puberty. Histologically, they are defined by the presence of Rinke's crystal, which are pathogenomics of Leydig cell tumors. In pubertal patients, these tumors are universally benign, and complete surgical excision is considered curative. Surgery include testicular sparing surgeries with intraoperative frozen section or radical orchidectomy. The second one is a Sertoli cell tumor, which is the second most common testicular stromal tumor, and it may be associated with gynecomastia in post-pubertal age range. They are benign tumors with no reported cases of METs in children. A variant of Sertoli cell tumor can occur in patients with Peutz-Jeghers syndrome, and surgery include testicular sparing surgery with intraoperative frozen section or radical orchidectomy. So that's all.